Hello, welcome to White Davy Gardening and Worm Farm. If you like my channel, please press the subscribe button. So as you can see in my previous, or as you saw in my previous video, I am maintaining my worm bins today. And in my previous video I mentioned that it has been close to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks since I've maintained these bins. Now as you can see, all of the material on top of this bin is quite dry. So we're going to dig down to see how these worms are doing. I'm seeing worms close to the surface. It looks as if it has some amount of moisture in there. These worms are not wasting time, are they? They're just processing the material very fast. In fact, if I take out the cardboard out of this, the cardboard that is on the surface, I can actually harvest this bin. And this bin was started in September, and I can actually harvest the bin. So I think these worms have been pretty busy. Mark you, some of the material in there was partially composted from the time that they were in my outdoor worm bin. So it makes it easier for the bin to be finished processing quickly. Now this is something I recommend you do not do with your worm bin. This is an avocado seed, and I definitely, unless you're planning to grow the avocado seed, I recommend not putting it in your worm bin like this. So if you're going to feed it to your worms, I would suggest finely chopping it or running it through your food processor after cutting it into cubes, because this can be in here for more than a year without being processed. So I'd recommend not doing this, but spend the time if you want to feed it to your worms to process it. And if you want your worms to be processing your food scraps rather quickly, avoid feeding them anything that takes long to break down, because your worms do not have teeth. And if they don't have teeth, it means they won't be able to chew the things that you put into the worm bin. So if you want your bin to be processed quickly, feed them things that are easy to break down, or if not, freeze it and allow it to thaw, then feed it to them, or run it through your food processor. Well, sometimes we don't really have time for such detailed maintenance of our worms, where we're going to be finely chopping things, or time to run things through food processor. Freezing it might not be an issue, except that it might take up a lot of space in your refrigerator. But if those things are not an option, then I recommend composting the materials that are hard to break down. And then when it is broken down, you feed it to them. And in the meantime, you just keep on feeding them those things that are easy for them to consume. So that is how you can help your worms to consume the material in your bin, process your food scraps quickly. Although you see me using this, I recommend not using something like this to turn your worm bin, unless that's all you've got. I have a little 3-teeth fork that I use, but for some reason in the process of tidying this garage and at the same time bringing in a lot of things from outdoors, I've misplaced it. Now the reason why I would not really recommend using this is because as you go down into the material, you can actually be cutting your worms, and you don't want to do that. So that is why I recommend not using something like this in your worm bin. And that is why when I'm using it in the worm bin, I tend to go more off the sides with it and try to be as gentle as possible so that I will harm a few worms or no worms at all in the process. So this bin is definitely too dry. I'm going to be moistening it with my BT water. I still cannot figure out where all these debris are coming from in the worm bin, because it's not as if I put these things in my worm bin, the stones and the plastics. Well, I understand that some of the plastic will come off those labels that comes on the fruits. Those I always try my best to take off, but then sometimes you're not the only one adding things to the compost bin, so the kids may put peels in there that has those plastic, but then you see plastic that is unrelated to food and you don't know where they come from. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more videos like these that offers practical tips on worm farming, please take a moment to give me a thumbs up. You can leave a comment in the section below. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe and turn on your notification for more updates like these. Thank you so much for watching, and have yourself a wonderful day. Yeah man, a time for grow.